I know some of our facts have slipped out of your brain faster than they went in, but not these. Once you hear them, there's no unknowing them. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are fun facts you won't be able to forget. Star Wars has given us some iconic props, lightsabers, blasters, the Millennium Falcon, and even an ice cream maker. In The Empire Strikes Back, there's a scene where people are evacuating Cloud City, and one guy, Wilro Hood, is actually casually carrying what is clearly a regular ice cream machine. Fans noticed, turned it into a cult obsession, and the machine later got an official Star Wars name, the Camtono. Decades later, The Mandalorian took the joke full circle and brought it back. Only this time it wasn't holding ice cream, but Beskar. It was the tiniest Easter egg, but us Star Wars fans loved it. Your electric razor has a different pitch depending on the country you're in. In the US, it buzzes somewhere between A sharp and B, while in Britain, it's closer to a G. That's because the sound comes from the electrical frequency powering it, 60 Hz in the US and 50 in Europe. This frequency controls the voltage cycles, which in turn affects the hum you hear. So, if your razor ever sounds a little off while traveling, don't worry, it's just adjusting to its new electrical accent. When police raided a marijuana growing operation in Michigan, the owner, 60-year-old Hendrik J. Westers, had a bold escape plan. Grab a canoe and paddle away. Yeah, it didn't work. After making it to the middle of the lake, he realized there was literally nowhere to go and had to awkwardly paddle back to shore where officers were waiting. He was promptly arrested and charged with resisting arrest and multiple drug offenses. Turning 21 is a big deal for all of us, but for Danny Melody it came with a very public lesson in bad decisions. While celebrating in Dublin, he spotted a classic photo stand. You know those boards where you stick your head through a hole for a silly picture? It seemed like a great idea at the time, until he couldn't get his head back out. His friends, being the supportive crew that they were, did the only logical thing. Filmed it and uploaded it to YouTube. Passers-by joined in, snapping photos of the trapped leprechaun. Danny eventually got free, but the internet never forgets. George C. Parker was one of history's boldest con artists, and I do not say that lightly. In the early 1900s, Parker convinced several gullible victims that he owned the Brooklyn Bridge and was looking for investors to help run a toll booth. Some fell so hard that they paid up to $50,000 for the rights to the bridge. Police had to step in multiple times when new owners tried setting up tolls. Parker also sold Grant's Tomb, the Statue of Liberty, and the Met. If nothing else, it's safe to say the guy had unmatched confidence. We've all heard this cure. If you get stung by a jellyfish, just pee on it. But unless you're trying to make a beach day really awkward, don't. It doesn't work. The idea is that the urine is acidic enough to neutralize the jellyfish's toxins, but here's the problem. Your pee isn't nearly strong enough to counteract it. At best, the warmth might feel nice for a second, but well, that's about it. If you want actual relief, rinse it with vinegar or salt water. Otherwise, you'll just end up in pain and covered in pee. While TikTok might soon be lost to America, it's good to know that it has a community for everyone. Even nuns. Sister Lisa H., a devout Catholic, started posting on TikTok while working at a Christian college. After joining a convent, she kept at it, sharing Bible readings, reflections, and Q&A sessions about convent life. Her popularity is so incredible that she has almost 150,000 followers. And she's not alone. There are so many nuns on TikTok that hashtag NunTalk is officially a thing. From dances to reaction clips, it's basically a modern-day Sister Act, but with more lip syncing. Beer or water? Well, beer is made up of 90% water, so it's kind of like asking for the same thing. The only difference is that beer production uses a lot of water behind the scenes, from cleaning equipment to generating steam for boilers. By the time beer is being poured at your local bar, between 20 to 30 gallons of water goes into every single pint. So don't waste it. The people of LA are going through a tough time with recent wildfires, and it is truly heartbreaking. If your house is on fire, stay calm and act fast. Get everyone out immediately. Don't stop for belongings. Stay low to avoid smoke, and check doors for heat with the back of your hand before opening them. If the door is hot, find another way out. Once outside, go to a safe meeting spot, and you can now call 911. Never go back inside for any reason. But What if you're trapped? Then close the doors, block gaps to keep smoke out, and signal for help through a window. Always prioritize your safety and the safety of others. Things can be replaced. Lives cannot. Here's a weight you can't shed, no matter what diet you try. You might not be able to see it like fat, but microorganisms are everywhere on our bodies, from the skin to the gut, all the way to the brain. All in all, there are trillions of them. And if we could bundle these all together and put them on a scale, it would amount to between 1 and 3% of our body mass. For a 200-pound person, that would mean 6 pounds of bacteria. It's a good thing most of these are on our side, serving to, protect us from infections and helping to break down food. If you've been wondering where the Christmas spirit lives, let me enlighten you. It's not in your heart, it's all in your brain. Danish scientists discovered that when people who love the holidays were shown festive images, think Christmas cookies and twinkling lights, 3 specific areas of their brains lit up. These regions stayed quiet for those without a cultural connection to the season, or those who just weren't feeling the jolly vibes. So, in short, the Christmas spirit lies in your left primary motor cortex, parietal lobule, and somatosensory cortex. Not quite the answer you imagined, but hey, science still proved that the magic is real. Are you trapped on a desert island? Well, there's one important rule to remember. Don't drink the seawater, no matter how tempting it might seem. Human bodies simply aren't designed to process that much salt. Penguins, on the other hand, they don't have that problem. They have tiny desalination filters inside their bodies. Just like giant plants that transform salt water into fresh water for us to drink, a select group of animals like penguins and pelicans have tiny internal desalination factories. Inside their bills, tiny salt glands extract salt and then secrete it out the tip of their beak, leaving unsalted water to drink freely. Smiling and laughter aren't just human idiosyncrasies. They've been around for a lot longer than we might think. Researchers from Kyoto University found that baby Japanese macaques, which are quite distant from humans on the evolutionary tree, smile in their sleep. This shows that the roots of smiling and laughter stretch back well before our ancestors branched off from other primates. So, we humans, and our very oldest ancestors, have probably been smiling and laughing for our entire existence. It's a timeless, universal trait that has been with us throughout the ages. If you've had your appendix removed, then you'll know the feeling of waking up a little confused with a scar on your lower belly. Now imagine instead of a hospital, you're working on a remote research base in Antarctica, in the middle of a snowstorm. Luckily, you're a surgeon. Your name is Leonid Rogozov, and feeling brave, you decide to become the first person to perform an appendectomy on yourself. This guy, Rogozov, really did that. The Russian doctor had cut himself open and worked his way around without gloves, using just his touch. The operation took almost 2 hours, but it was a success. Now that's a surgeon I'd trust. 18. Alabama's very specific ice cream law. Of all the weird laws still hanging around, this one might be one of the most random. In Alabama, it is illegal to carry an ice cream cone in your back pocket. Sounds ridiculous, right? But back in the 1800s, horse thieves actually used this trick to lure horses away without technically stealing them. They'd casually walk past with an ice cream cone sticking out of their pocket, and curious horses would follow. Since the thief never physically led or rode the horse, it was tough to charge them with theft. Back in 1950, journalist Dorothy Rowe made an interesting prediction. She said by the year 2000, every woman would be at least 6 feet tall. Not just a few, all of them. She claimed that scientific evidence supported her idea and that better nutrition and healthcare would turn women into perfectly proportioned Amazons. Fast forward to today and yeah, that didn't happen. Women are a bit taller than they were in the 50s, but not by much. So unless science is really slacking, it looks like we'll have to wait a little longer for our Amazonian future. Princess Diana was the people's princess, who earned millions of loyal fans. And in 1997, her death in a tragic car crash shocked the world. Unfortunately for Diana devotees, her resting place isn't open. Her gravesite is pretty inaccessible, located on an island surrounded by a lake. It's located on the grounds of Althorp, a huge estate that Diana's family has owned for hundreds of years. On the other side of the water, there's a memorial for anyone who wants to pay tribute to the late princess, surrounded by 36 oak trees, one to represent each year she lived. You know the story of pregnancy. It's pretty simple, right? A man fertilizes a woman's egg that then grows inside her uterus, but what if an egg grows outside the uterus? That's what an ectopic pregnancy is. and it can happen to up to 2% of all pregnancies. If left untreated, organs can be pushed and even burst, causing serious injury or death to the mother. Luckily, ultrasounds and blood tests can detect ectopic pregnancies early, making women much safer, but there is still a risk. This next one is what happens in rare cases when ectopic pregnancies aren't treated. When an elderly woman started experiencing pelvic pain, she visited a doctor, expecting some kind of muscle or joint injury. But what she was told shocked her. An x-ray showed something in her abdomen called a lithopedion, also known as a stone baby. Pictures of these are haunting. They're formed when the fertilized egg grows in the abdomen, and sometimes when they fail, the body covers it with tissue to protect it, slowly calcifying over time. This stone baby had been inside the old woman's body for years without her even knowing. Our throwing skills didn't just change the game, they changed everything. Nearly 2 million years ago, early humans gained the unique ability to throw rocks and spears with precision and power, a skill that even chimpanzees can't come close to. For context, chimps throw only about a third as fast as a 12-year-old little leaguer. Researchers at George Washington and Harvard found that our shoulder works like a slingshot, storing and releasing energy with each throw. This evolution in our torso and arms wasn't just for show, it let our ancestors hunt big game, leading to bigger brains, stronger bodies, and the ability to explore new parts of the world. In 2006, scientists decided to tackle one of life's biggest mysteries. Why don't penguins' feet freeze off? After very close inspection, they discovered that penguins have a built-in heating system. Warm blood flows down their legs, transfers heat to the colder blood coming back up, and voila, no frostbite. But the best part about this study is that it actually led to real-world innovations, like better insulated clothing and heated gloves. So if your winter boots keep your toes warm, you probably have some very well-researched penguin feet to thank. We've all seen over-engineered solutions to simple problems, but this one takes the cake. I guess they're croissant. Sensor-wake alarm clocks wake you up with the scent of fresh pastries, coffee, or peppermint instead of a screaming alarm. It uses scent cartridges that last 30 days, giving you a gentle, luxurious wake-up experience. And if you somehow sleep through it, no worries, it does come with a backup alarm. Now, according to those in the know, the replacement of scent cartridges every month isn't exactly convenient, but hey, if waking up to the smell of croissants is wrong, do we really want to be right? Winning a Nobel Prize is one of the highest honors in the world. But if you're looking for a prize for the weirdest research, the Ig Nobel Prize might be your thing. The Annals of Improbable Research give awards for scientific studies that make people laugh first and think later. For instance, in 2017, the Economics Prize went to 6 researchers who studied whether voodoo dolls could help employees cope with their horrible bosses. The results? Stabbing, burning, and crushing a mini version of their boss actually made the workers feel much better. Though there's no word on if any managers mysteriously develop back pain, but according to science, it works. But before you scrunch your nose, hear this. These bricks are odorless, safe, and just as tough as limestone. Plus, they're made at room temperature, which means no energy-guzzling kilns spewing out carbon dioxide. The process mimics how coral forms, using bacteria to break down the urea in urine, creating calcium carbonate to bond with sand. Unlike past attempts using synthetic urea, this team used the real deal. And though the smell might be intense during the process, after 48 hours, the bricks lose their odor and are bacteria-free. Oh, and the leftover ammonia? Perfect for making fertilizer. Picture this. Hundreds of people forming a human chain, hand-to-hand, passing books down the street. Sounds like something out of a feel-good movie, right? Well, that's exactly what happened in Southampton, England in 2018. October Books, a beloved indie bookstore, needed to relocate after a rent increase, but moving thousands of books was a bit of a tall order. Luckily, the community stepped up to the plate. On moving day, families, shopkeepers, and random passers-by all got together and joined forces, forming a 150-meter human chain to help move all 20,000 books to the new location. Now that's awesome. Putting your hand on their forehead is a surefire way to tell if someone has a fever. But what about plants? You might not expect it, but plants are also prone to fevers. One experiment put a handful of healthy leaves inside a container and measured the temperature of the oxygen they produced. Then, the same was done with leaves suffering from a virus. The sick plants had temperatures up to 3.5 degrees hotter. Unfortunately, though, they just can't call into work sick. Can you imagine what it would feel like to be told that you'll never be able to walk again, only to defy the odds with the help of cutting-edge science? That's exactly what happened to 3 men in Switzerland thanks to groundbreaking spinal implants. Developed by a team at EPFL, these electrical devices amplify the brain's signals to the legs, helping the patients walk again. Incredibly, the implants even started regrowing damaged nerves. Take David Imsey, for example. After 7 years in a wheelchair, he can now walk nearly a kilometer when his implant is switched on. It's not perfect yet, but the tech is giving new hope to spinal injury patients all around the world. Winning the lottery is already a long shot, but winning with the numbers 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10? Well, that's exactly what happened in South Africa in December 2020 when 20 people hit the jackpot and split $7.8 million. The internet immediately called foul because, come on, what are the odds? And seeing as South Africa ranks 83rd out of 180 countries on the Corruption Perceptions Index, well, you can't really blame the public for being suspicious. The National Lotteries Commission, however, launched an investigation, but after checking, they found no fraud, no rigging, just 20 lucky people who either went with their gut or figured, why not? If you've ever wondered where the center of the universe is, forget New York, London, or Tokyo, it's Wallace, Idaho. Because of course it is. At the corner of 6th Street and Bank Street, you'll find a manhole cover proudly declaring Wallace as the portal to the universe's core. Is there any scientific proof? Absolutely not. But the sign says so, and who are we to argue with a manhole cover? We all know words matter in legal contracts, but in 2019, an Israeli court ruled that emojis matter too. A landlord sued his prospective tenants after they backed out of renting his apartment, arguing that their messages, filled with champagne bottles, dancing emojis, and smiley faces, gave him the idea that the deal was sealed. He took down his listing, only for them to change their minds. The court agreed, and the prospective tenants had to pay damages. A few years ago, selfies were all the rage, timing be damned, and it's given us pretty interesting arrests. In 2015, 2 California tourists visited the Roman Colosseum, admired its ancient beauty, and then carved their initials into it. Because apparently, souvenirs just weren't enough. Despite clear signs in both English and Italian warning against vandalism, they happily took selfies with their crime scene, right before getting arrested. Shocked, they claimed they had no idea they were breaking the law. The judge didn't believe them. Remember when planking swept the internet? Well, that wasn't the first time a ridiculous public activity took hold for no apparent reason. Back in the 20s, all the cool kids were pole sitting, and it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. People would find a pole, climb to the top, and then sit on it for as long as they could. One man, Alvin Kelly, made the world record by sitting on a pole in Atlantic City for 49 days. Over a period of 7 weeks, he attracted tens of thousands of visitors. He kept his food mainly to soup, sleeping with legs wrapped around the pole, and peeing into a bucket. Sadly for Alvin, the Great Depression put an end to the pole-sitting trend and put him out of a job. Are you nervous about AI taking over your job or turning into a sci-fi villain like we saw in The Matrix? Or, The Terminator? You shouldn't be. AI pioneer Geoffrey Hinton has previously expressed concern about how fast AI is advancing. In addition to outsmarting us, he worries it'll blur the line between fact and fiction and become too manipulative. But there's a silver lining. Hinton's worries are about next-level AI, not the everyday tools that handle tasks like scheduling or data entry. Experts believe that while AI might shift some job roles, it'll also create new, higher-paying opportunities. So rather than an AI takeover, think of it as a smart shift in the job market. You might think that 1,000-year-old mummies would smell horrible, and that might be the case now, but the mixtures used to preserve them once had quite a pleasant aroma. That's according to a group of researchers who set out to recreate the exact scent of some embalming fluid. They used fluids found in ancient jars, analyzed trace amounts, and put together a final product that included plant oil, beeswax, and pine. Apparently, it gives off a woody kind of pine-like scent. I mean, that sounds just like a commercial for Hugo Boss or Sauvage. God, perfume and cologne commercials are so weird. Oh, what a weird... I mean, I know you can't, we don't have smell-o-vision yet, but man, they're just weird commercials. A colonoscopy is never going to be a pleasant experience. And in case you don't know what it involves, I'll give you the PG version. A tube goes up your butt with a camera attached. This is mainly used to look for cancer or bowel conditions. However, in some rare cases, the doctor might spot something else. In one instance, a fly was discovered inside a 63-year-old completely intact. I mean, the fly. I'm sure the 63-year-old was also completely intact. Doctors had no answer as to how this could have happened, and no one had ever seen anything like it before. I think I'll just be double checking my takeout from now on, just in case. Australia might just become the first country to kick cervical cancer to the curb. A recent report in the Lancet Public Health Journal highlights Australia's impressive progress in battling this disease. By rolling out a national screening program in 1991 and an HPV vaccination scheme in 2007, they've brought the cervical cancer rate down to 7 per 100,000 people. That is half the global average. If trends continue, experts predict it could drop below 5 cases per 100,000 by 2025 and possibly just 4 by 2035. While there's no official World Health Organization threshold yet for declaring the disease eliminated, Australia is on track to be the world's first to hit this milestone. You've heard of Illuminati theories, secret societies, and reptilian overlords, but have you heard of the Hollywood star whackers? In 2010, actor Randy Quaid and his wife Evie fled to Canada, claiming they were escaping a shadowy organization that was killing off celebrities. According to Quaid, this hit squad has a list of stars they plan to take down. No actual proof of the star whackers exists, but since Quaid and his wife are still alive, and currently living in Vermont, we can only assume they're either hiding or that the star whackers are really bad at staying on target. Most jobs require effort, skills, and come with at least some level of stress. But what if I told you there's a job where all you have to do is sleep? Yeah, it exists. Professional sleepers get paid to sleep, and depending on where they do it, the paycheck can be pretty impressive. The scientific community needs sleep testers to conduct research, mattress companies hire test subjects, and there are even artists that are willing to pay for sleeping subjects. It's not your standard 9 to 5, but if you play your cards right, you could make a solid living by literally doing nothing. Drug smugglers will try anything to move their product, including turning into statues. In 2010, Colombian police seized a World Cup trophy replica made of 11 kilograms or 24 pounds of cocaine before it could be shipped to Spain. Because nothing says team spirit like a chemically improved trophy, right? Meanwhile, in the US, authorities intercepted a Jesus statue made of cocaine en route from Mexico to Dallas. Despite their best efforts, sniffer dogs saw right through the disguise, leaving the smugglers out of luck and out of options. Most of us don't give a lot of thought to trees' internal rhythms, but maybe it's time we do. Recently, the Finnish Geospatial Research Institute used infrared light to monitor 2 silver birch trees, and scientists discovered that trees exhibit a nightly drooping pattern, similar to how we rest after a long day. Even more intriguing was that these trees began to perk up and prepare for sunrise well before the actual break of dawn. This suggests that trees have their own internal rhythm, not just responding mechanically to sunlight, but actually engaging in something akin to a natural circadian rhythm. Zombies are real. At least, this kind of fungi comes as close as you can get to what you and I think of as a zombie. The cordyceps can take full control of an insect and use them to its own advantage. You're probably thinking, fungi, aren't those mushrooms? What could they possibly want? Well, first, cordyceps deprive an ant or spider of nutrients, pollute the body with spores, and then create a perfect environment for more fungi to reproduce. But it goes even further. Sometimes it directs a body to go to higher ground, or find other insects to maximize how the fungus spreads. That is truly mind control. Luckily for us, cordyceps doesn't work on humans. At least for now. But I've seen enough zombie movies to know there's probably a tiny possibility somewhere in the future. Did you know March 20th is the International Day of Happiness? Established in 2012, this UN-backed day is all about spreading cheer and making the world a better place. The UN even has a nifty guide with 10 steps to help you celebrate, like sharing your good vibes, working to eliminate hunger, and reducing inequality. And let's not forget the World Happiness Report, which ranks countries by their joy levels. As of March 2024, Finland's been holding the top spot for 7 years straight, with Denmark, Norway, Iceland, and the Netherlands trailing close behind. According to John Hellewell, one of the report's co-editors, the secret to Finnish happiness is a mix of high taxes for social benefits, trust in their government, freedom, and a generous spirit. Once upon a time, payphones were for awkward collect calls and digging through your pockets for spare change. Today, they recite poetry on demand. Thanks to the Telephone Project, defunct phone booths in Arizona, California, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Iowa have been transformed into interactive poetry hubs. You just have to step inside, dial a number, and listen as a vintage phone recites one of over 1,000 poems. And if poetry isn't your thing, Washington, D.C.'s Joke Phones got you covered, offering knock-knock jokes, fun facts, and positivity at the push of a button. A baseball at Walmart will set you back about $2.97. A baseball signed by Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Cy Young, and Honus Wagner, a cool $632,369. That's what one lucky collector paid in an auction in 2018 for a ball signed by 11 Hall of Famers during the first ever induction in 1939. Now, if you think that was pricey, you'll be shocked to learn that the most expensive baseball ever sold wasn't even signed. It was Mark McGwire's 70th home run ball from 1998, which comic book artist Todd McFarlane bought for $3 million. And McGwire? He could have had the ball for free, if he had just agreed to meet the fan who caught it. Instead, that fan sold it and became a multimillionaire. Oof. Since I'm talking about expensive things, how do you feel about flushing money down the toilet? For the bargain price of $1.3 million per roll, you can own golden toilet paper. Yes, real 24-karat gold woven into a roll that's technically safe to use, but let's be honest, if you actually use it, you might be beyond saving. Unlike other gold items that last forever, this one and done. But don't worry, your $1 million purchase comes with a free bottle of champagne, because evidently, that's what seals the deal. Stan Larkin appeared to be a regular-looking high schooler with a backpack on. That is, until you notice a large tube protruding out of his bag. Amazingly, this is where Stan kept his heart. Ever since he suffered cardiac arrest at a young age, it was discovered that both sides of his heart were failing. So doctors installed an artificial heart called Big Blue, a machine that does the same job as a real heart, pumping blood around the body. It kept him alive for 555 days while he waited for a successful heart transplant that returned him to full health. We're not the only ones to teach our kids to share. Chimpanzees have a soft spot for sharing too, at least when it comes to food. Researchers from the Max Planck Institute observed these clever primates in Tai National Park, Ivory Coast, and found that they're surprisingly generous. Unlike many other animals who only share food with family or for a specific benefit, chimps were seen sharing, even with non-relatives, without any immediate payoff. Historically, sharing was a major milestone in human evolution, leading to the development of early societies. It's rare in the animal kingdom outside of mating or family rituals, but chimps seem to be an exception. In Morocco, they do punishments a little differently than the rest of the world, especially 100 years ago. They saved the worst of them for the worst offenders, like serial killers. When a man named Haj Mohammed Mesfoui was finally caught after taking the lives of 36 women, the walls were closing in on him. Literally. Near a busy marketplace in Marrakesh for the public to see, Mesfoui was propped up standing and had a wall built around him. Apparently, crowds could hear him yelling for 2 days. On the third day, the marketplace was quiet. Who knew that breaking a world record could also be a splash for a great cause? On June 9, 2018, over 2,500 women braved the freezing waters of Macklemore Beach in Wicklow, Ireland to set a new Guinness World Record for the largest skinny dipping event ever. But it wasn't just about flaunting their streaking skills, it was all for a good cause. Organized by Deirdre Featherstone, the event aimed to support Even's Pink Tie, a charity dedicated to pediatric cancer research. And what started as a small swim with 60 friends and family in the first year, following Featherstone's own battle with cancer, has grown into a massive annual event. In an age of surveillance, it's safe to assume most of what we do online can be traced back to us. But if you're willing to completely give up your privacy, you could have made yourself a cool $200,000. That's the sum a company called Promobot offered in 2021 for the rights to people's voices and faces. What will they use them for? To build a robot. And they didn't have any trouble finding volunteers, with their website flooded with tens of thousands of applicants. Maybe replicants? Body positivity isn't as new as it seems. In the 1860s, a club was founded in New York for one group of people: fat men. The rules for entry were strict: a $1 fee and a minimum weight of 200 pounds. The Fat Men Club of New York was one of many that swept the US at the time. Most of the activities revolved around eating, sometimes a 9-course meal. In some of them, there were even competitions over who could weigh in the heaviest. The winners would receive a small trophy of some kind, and those wouldn't be the only objects giving us a glimpse into the strange past. Are you in need of some sage advice, even if it's served with a side of humor? Head over to the Salt Lake City Farmers Market, where a group of retirees known as the Old Coots has become the unlikely stars of a growing movement. This group of elderly friends decide to set up an advice booth at the market to distract themselves from their usual Saturday morning deli chats with a banner that proudly proclaims Old Coots giving advice. It's probably bad advice, but it's free. They've turned into a hit attraction, helping 30 to 40 people each week with their unique brand of wisdom. The crew, mostly in their late 60s or early 70s, has tackled everything from dating dilemmas to ghost-busting inquiries. And their movement is growing. According to our research, Old Coots can now be found in Ventnor, New Jersey, and New Braunfels Farmer Market, and other farmers markets across the country. So, if you're looking for some offbeat advice and a good chuckle, check out the Old Coots at markets across the US. These wise, wacky retirees are proving that the best advice can come from the most unexpected places. If you're calling an emergency service, the very first thing you should do is give them your address. Seriously, spell it out as fast and clearly as you can. Why? Because if the call drops faster than your Wi-Fi during a thunderstorm, they'll still know where to find you. Think of it this way. You could be mid-sentence explaining your dire need for help and then bam, the phone battery dies or cell signal says adios. No one wants to play hide and seek with first responders. So remember, your address is more important than your name or circumstance. If you ever find yourself in an emergency where you need to break a car window, pick the hardest thing you can find and aim for the edges, not the center. Car windows aren't just random sheets of glass, they're made of tempered glass, which is engineered to be tough at the core, but weak around the edges. The edges are like the Achilles heel. So next time you're in a car emergency or just curious about why breaking the middle of the glass is a fool's errand, remember this edge-breaking trick. Victorian England had a lot of etiquette rules, but this one might be the most joy-crushing. Women were expected to cover their mouths when laughing or smiling too broadly. Why? Because heaven forbid a woman show too much emotion in public. Modesty was everything, and a big open-mouthed laugh was seen as unladylike, something that could actually damage a woman's reputation. Meanwhile, men could grin, guffaw, and chuckle all they wanted. Thankfully, times have changed, and women are now free to laugh out loud without worrying about scandalizing high society. This might just be the item that you guys thank me for the most. Tucked away in Jefferson, Vermont is a place known as Golden Dog Farm, where they grow all the usual farm staples. Maple syrup, honey, fruit. But that's not why visitors keep coming back. They come for the golden retrievers. Known as a happy, this lovable pack of Goldens is the highlight of the farm's happy hour, where guests can book an hour-long session to play, cuddle, and snap photos with up to 12 friendly dogs. The farm's owners never expected their venture to go viral, but once word spread online, reservations started selling out fast. For many visitors, especially those who have lost a pet or can't have dogs at home, it's an experience filled with joy, comfort, and a whole lot of fur. Science and humor rarely go hand in hand, but Project Steve is proof that they should. The peculiar initiative started as a tongue-in-cheek response to organizations that use scientist petitions to push anti-evolution agendas. But unlike those lists, this one has only one requirement. You have to be a Steve, Stephanie, or Steven to sign. With over 1,500 Steves already endorsing evolution, the project makes this hilarious yet solid point. When you can gather this many scientists with the same name to support a theory, it's probably not up for debate. Beyond the fun, however, Project Steve clearly turns the tables on misleading tactics, showing just how ridiculous it is to base credibility on names rather than expertise. The message is clear. When even just the Steves are enough to prove a point, the debate is already settled. We all have a rudimentary understanding of how CPR works. We've seen it on TV and in movies hundreds of times. But when it comes time to actually perform it, we hesitate because we're untrained in the technique. However, should the crisis arrive, healthcare professionals recommend that you perform CPR even if you're not professionally trained. CPR of any kind dramatically improves survival rates. A general rule of thumb for adult CPR is to give 2 breaths for every 30 chest compressions, and those compressions should be very hard. You have to press down 5 to 6 centimeters or 2 to 2.5 inches. In fact, it's very common for ribs to be broken during CPR. Give 1 to 2 breaths for every 15 chest compressions if 2 individuals perform CPR. Continue until you notice signs of life or medical help arrives. If you find yourself stranded without electronic tech, the signal fire is the most popular and effective method of signaling for help. A well-built signal fire will draw attention from miles away. It also has the added benefit of informing an airborne rescuer like a helicopter about the wind conditions at your location. If you're stranded in an area with plenty of dry wood, there's no reason you shouldn't keep your signal fire burning as long and as frequently as possible. If you're in an area with limited fuel, you're much better off creating a pyre than waiting for the ideal opportunity, such as sighting a search and rescue plane. Because your signal fire must generate a lot of smoke, the final layer on the pyre should consist of green, leafy plant life or brush. You could also burn your vehicle's spare tire should no wood or plant life be available. It's happened at a Houston music festival, an English soccer stadium, a Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia, a Chicago nightclub, and hundreds of other gatherings. Large crowds surge towards exits, onto playing fields, or push up against the stage with so much force that people are literally squeezed to death. People who die in stampedes are just as likely to die due to suffocation as crushing, because the bodies walking over them or falling on them make breathing difficult. If you are knocked down in a stampede, your chances of survival decrease dramatically. However, if this is the case and you can't stand up immediately, take a defensive stance with your feet curled up and your hands covering your head. Keep your face towards the crowd so you don't get kicked, and get back onto your feet as soon as possible. When you see a brightly colored animal in the wild, think of it as nature's vision of a neon warning sign. Why? Bright colors in animals are the product of a defense mechanism called aposematism, which allows poisonous or unpalatable species to send a clear warning to potential predators. Take poison dart frogs, for example. Their electric hues aren't random. They clearly convey that their skin contains potent venoms. Similarly, monarch butterflies develop their bright orange and black patterns as caterpillars feed on toxic milkweed, making them a risky snack for birds. Predators who ignore these warnings often suffer severe consequences, whether it's discomfort, illness, or worse, death. So yes, their colors might dazzle you, but please let it stop at that. If your home suddenly smells like a fish market, and you're not prepping for a seafood feast, don't just wrinkle your nose. That's an emergency alarm. That smell often means something electrical is overheating, like wires or outlets, and it's a common sign of an electrical fire waiting to happen. When electrical components overheat, the plastic coatings on wires can give off a distinctly fishy odor. If you notice this, don't ignore it. Quickly trace the source of the smell, or look for signs like scorch marks or discoloration, and immediately cut power to the area. Avoid using the affected outlet or appliance, and call a professional to check it out. So if your house smells like fish for no logical reason, don't blame it on the neighbor. Act fast and stay safe. If your plane ever makes a water landing, resist the instinct to immediately inflate your jacket. Here's why. If you do it too soon, it could trap you inside the sinking plane. Once your plane touches down on the ocean, the pressure changes and makes it tricky to move around. If you blow up your life jacket before you get out, you might get stuck in the cabin. Instead, wait until you're safely outside the aircraft and clear of debris. Once you're in open water, inflate your jacket slowly, making sure you have space to maneuver and avoid any obstacles. A little patience could mean the difference between floating free and being trapped underwater. So the next time you find yourself in a water landing, remember, inflate after you've escaped, not before. It's your first night in the woods. You've pitched your tent under a tree. Shade, shelter, the whole deal. But there's something more important you're yet to consider. Trees can quickly turn on you. That quiet, shady tree could be holding a branch that's been plotting its descent for months. Sometimes one strong gust of wind, a lightning storm, or the weight of a bird could send a branch crashing down onto your tent. Suddenly, your idyllic camping trip looks less like a postcard and more like a scene from a survival show. The safer move? Find a nice open space away from trees, but not so exposed that you're vulnerable to wind. A flat, dry area is the best camping spot. Not too close to water, not too exposed, and definitely not under anything that might fall, zap, or drip on you. If you're being tied up with rope, try to puff yourself up as much as possible to create a little bit of room you can wiggle out of later. Tighten your muscles. Take a deep breath and flex your arms and legs to make more space. If someone is tying your wrists, cross them so that the sides are in contact with each other and appear relaxed. Once they're bound and you're alone, twist them so their front sides are in contact and move them apart. This works great with zip ties, which is why cops use two and loop them together. Did you know there's a simple way to determine if you or someone else is having a stroke? Remember the acronym FAST. It will help you to keep an eye out for facial drooping, the part of the face that's drooping and difficult to move, usually on one side. Arm weakness, the inability to fully extend or raise an arm. Speech difficulties, an inability or difficulty to talk or understand what you're saying. Time. If any of these symptoms are present, time is of the essence. Call 911 or your local emergency services immediately. If someone grabs your wrists, quickly pull away from the area where their thumbs are because thumbs form the weakest part of the grip. Other self-defense instructors will train you to quickly lean into them and then apply the thumb rule. For attacks from behind, lean into them and then drop. It's a matter of doing the opposite of what your attacker expects. Another helpful tip for when someone grabs your neck is to raise your hands over your head and rotate your entire body. Throwing up your hands reduces their grip on your neck and could surprise them into reducing their grasp, and then the twisting motion with your whole body helps you slip out of their clutches. There are many countries where it's mandatory for every car, or any other vehicle, to have one. Hopefully you're not going to need it, but having a basic first aid kit on hand is always a good idea. Before treating injuries, make sure your kit has sterile wipes to not only clean the wound, but also sterilize your hands. You should also add iodine and pure alcohol to your kit. Include gauze wraps, band-aids, bandages, and lots of aspirin to alleviate fever and swelling. Consider adding some bug repellent for good measure. If you use your first aid kit regularly, replenish what you've taken out. Also be sure to know the expiration dates on your items if you never use them, so that nothing is past the expiration date and that everything in it is always ready and safe to use. If you ever wake up in the dead of night to an unusual smell, something like a dense or faint smell of gas, your first instinct might be to turn on the light just to get a clearer look. Don't. Whatever you do, do not flip that switch. Why? Well, gas is highly flammable, and a tiny spark from something as simple as a light bulb can instantly set it off. One flick and you're creating a potential firestorm. Instead, stay calm, breathe slowly, and don't take any sudden actions. Carefully and quietly make your way out of the house. Once you're out, call emergency services right away. It's better to be cautious than to let a small spark turn into something disastrous. I know, you prefer to keep all your keys in one place, but it's time to reduce the weight on that keyring. An overloaded keyring can actually cause serious damage to your car's ignition. Each time you insert your key into the ignition, the extra weight pulls on it, placing unnecessary strain on the internal engine. Over time, this repeated wear and tear can lead to costly ignition repairs that could have easily been avoided with something as simple as a lighter keyring. Next time you're tempted to load up your keys on one keychain, remember, less is truly more when it comes to keeping your ignition in top shape. That shouldn't be so difficult, especially since a lot of us probably have push-to-starts now, but in case you don't, there you go. Let's say you're deep in the water, swimming, but then you get confused and don't know how to get back to the surface. Here's a simple yet life-saving trick. Just exhale. When you're disoriented after a dive, your natural instinct might be to hold your breath as you panic. But here's the thing. Your body doesn't lie. Exhaling helps you figure out which direction the surface is because bubbles always float upward. Take a slow breath out and you'll quickly notice if those bubbles are leading you toward the light or pulling you deeper. So the next time you find yourself lost underwater, follow the bubbles. They'll guide you back to safety. When you're stranded in the wild and the temperature is dropping, starting a fire isn't just useful, it's survival 101. Forget fumbling with damp matches or an empty lighter, a 9-volt battery and some steel wool could be your lifesaver. Here's how it works. Touch the battery's terminals to the steel wool and sparks will fly. Literally. The steel wool heats up and ignites really fast. Add some dried tinder and you got a fire burning in no time. Just remember to keep the wool dry and store the battery separately to avoid any accidental sparks. This isn't just clever, it's MacGyver level genius. Next time you pack for a hike, don't forget these tiny lifesavers. Get rid of your seatbelt and roll down your window as soon as possible after impact. At this point, the door is unlikely to open anyway. If you ever find yourself in a scenario where you need to break a car window, leverage the metal ends of your vehicle's retractable headrest to break the glass. This is especially useful if you're in a sinking car, and it works most effectively before the water pressure equalizes. So think fast and act faster. We know a hike is supposed to be one of the safest activities in the world. Just you, nature, and sweet, sweet relaxation. Unfortunately, predators can be anywhere, and that includes your secluded hike. When hiking, take a look behind you every now and then. If you believe you're being watched, chances are you are, and have been for quite some time. Bring a mirror with you as well. Turning around eliminates the element of surprise for any type of predator, whether human or not, and will give you time to escape. If you turn around and do see something, make as much noise as you can. Do not remain silent. And do not, for the love of God, turn around and go back if you think the danger is gone. You can build your own compass from a magnetized metal object, such as a needle, when you're lost. To magnetize it, brush the needle's eye against hair, fur, or silk about 100 times. Then, lay it on a leaf that can float in water and make sure there's no breeze. If everything's done correctly, the needle should begin to point north-south. Make sure there are no other metal objects around that can drag the needle off course. As most of us don't travel with needles on hand, here's where that first aid kit in the car comes in handy. Remember how to find your true north. First, place a stick in the ground that produces a shadow and mark its location. After 15 minutes, draw a line connecting the first and second shadow marks. Place your left foot on the first mark and your right foot on the second. You will be looking north. Seizures have 3 parts: beginning, middle, and end. The beginning, known as the aura, can include early warning signs of an impending seizure, such as sounds, smells, tastes, dizziness, or déjà and jamais vu. The seizure itself, whether it's a grand mal seizure or a simple partial seizure, is in the middle. The end comes after the seizure, when the brain goes into the postictal phase, usually accompanied by disorientation and memory loss, which can take anywhere from seconds to hours. The correct treatment for a tonic-clonic seizure differs from what you see on TV. What you should do is time how long the seizure lasts, move anything that they could hit out of the way, or just block their way to prevent them from moving too far, or falling into the water, falling off the bed, etc. After the episode, turn them on their side, and don't put anything in their mouth. If it lasts longer than 5 minutes, call an ambulance. You've probably seen this in a movie or experienced it yourself. A guy humming to his impeccable cooking skills and suddenly a small flame flares up. If this happens to you in the future, don't panic. Reach for a lid, not water. Why? Well, water and grease don't mix, and throwing water on a grease fire will only make things worse. Instead, use a metal lid to smother the flames. The lid cuts off the oxygen supply, which is the fire's lifeline. Simple, right? Remember, a lid can save you from a lot of smoke, and maybe even a trip to the hospital. Horses are large, strong animals with an instinct to protect themselves from surprises. Sneaking up behind one can startle it, triggering an unpredictable reaction, like a swift and forceful kick. And if you didn't know, a horse's kick isn't just painful, it can cause serious injuries, from fractures to traumatic brain damage. But that's entirely preventable. Horses rely heavily on their peripheral vision, so make sure they see you before you approach. Here's how you can do that. Stand at the side of the horse, between its head and shoulder. This allows you to easily catch their attention, making sure they see you before you get too close. Sneaking up on a horse is like stepping into a karate match you didn't sign up for. One kick, and it's lights out. As a kid, you probably noticed the purple flag flying at the beach. Well, it's not some quirky decoration or the lifeguard's favorite color. It's a serious warning that indicates the presence of dangerous sea life lurking nearby. Think jellyfish, stingrays, or even sharks. This isn't the time to display your swimming skills or audition for a surf challenge. If you spot a purple flag, your best move is to keep your feet dry, or stick to shallow areas where visibility is good. Always check with the lifeguards for updates. The bottom line? The ocean may be calling, but sometimes it's best to let that call go to voicemail. We all like our houses squeaky clean, but some cleaning products must never be used at the same time in the same room. Take bleach and ammonia, for instance. Mixing these two is like inviting a toxic gas factory into your home. The combination produces chloramine gas, a nasty chemical that can irritate your eyes and lungs, and in extreme cases, lead to death. So, here's the golden rule. Never use bleach and ammonia-based products in the same room, let alone together. Check your labels, because sneaky products like glass cleaners and some detergents often contain ammonia. A few drops and your spring cleaning session turns into a total disaster. This might seem silly. I mean, can someone even be smothered with a pillow? The answer is yes. It's happened before, and it's actually one of the hardest to diagnose causes of death. Should you end up with a pillow on your face, remember the following. 1. Don't panic. Pillows are permeable, so you will still be able to breathe slowly. If possible, try to turn your head sideways to get more air. 2. Push. If you're stronger than your attacker, you could be capable of pushing yourself off the bed. Otherwise, 3. Play dead. Struggling will waste your air and energy, prolonging the attack. If your attacker has seen too many movies, he'll give up long before your situation becomes critical. I know some of our fans learn these tips from the moment they're born, but some people aren't used to cold weather and can quickly end up in potentially deadly situations. First of all, you can survive an emergency in cold weather by remembering the acronym COLD. Very fitting. It stands for clean, avoid overheating, loose and in layers, and dry. Dress in layers because layers retain heat better. Keep dry. Take care of your feet, hands, and face. If you intend to go long distances, make a plan to move on top of the snow while sharing your destination with family or friends. Remember that clear ice is stronger than snow ice. Also, keep an eye out for signs of frostbite and hypothermia. And if you get stranded in the snow, fight the urge to eat the snow to stay hydrated. The amount of energy it takes to melt the snow in your body can put you at greater risk for hypothermia. Should you end up on thin ice and things go south, you may be tempted to scramble for help. The first step, however, is to remain calm. Next, keep your winter clothes on. They will assist with flotation and trap your body heat. To get out, turn back towards the direction you came from. This ice was strong enough to hold your body weight just a few moments ago. Grab a hold of the thicker ice and pull yourself up and out. Finally, stay flat against the ice and do not stand up. When flat on the ice, your body weight is more evenly distributed. Hopefully someone has phoned for assistance by this time and can get you warm. Warm up slowly because your body is probably already in shock. It's possible to survive a wildfire. Run. You can escape the blaze better if you sprint through it. Do not bunker down in a hole or a cave. You might become stuck with no way out and the fire might get inside said hole or cave. Always keep your distance from the fire, cover any exposed skin, but especially your breathing passages. If possible, cover yourself with a wet blanket or wet clothing. First and foremost, ensure that your nose, mouth, and eyes are protected. Choose the route with the fewest obstacles that'll take you to an area where the fire will burn at a lower intensity, such as a meadow or clearing. Most people scream or try to breathe in when they reach the flame front. Do not do this. This will bring scorching air into your lungs, causing them to blister and may result in drowning in your bodily fluids. If you've been stabbed by a knife, glass, metal, or anything else that produced a deep wound, don't take the weapon out because it could be slowing down a significant amount of blood loss. Instead, phone for assistance and apply pressure around the object in order to keep the blood loss under control until emergency responders arrive. You should also remember that the area has been changed into a crime scene. After calling emergency services, try to save any evidence you can and only move what you need in order to apply the necessary pressure. If you're trying to assist someone who's been stabbed, the same rules apply. But try to wear gloves and don't touch the weapon. Sometimes power lines carry more than 500,000 volts. As such, it's always best to avoid downed power lines because they can be extremely dangerous. Downed power lines don't always hum or generate any other electric sounds. This could lead to the assumption that they're not carrying any voltage. However, there is no reliable means to determine this, so it's best to avoid them entirely. Never take your feet off the ground if you find yourself near a downed electrical line. Because of the difference in voltage between both feet, walking by lifting one foot and placing it on the ground one after the other might conduct electricity. This would result in a difference in potential between the ground and you, which could prove disastrous. If you need to move away from a power line, the best course of action is to shuffle away slowly without lifting your feet. If your car breaks down in the middle of a railroad track and you see a train barreling toward you, get out of there as fast as your legs can carry you. This isn't the time to channel your inner action hero or argue with physics. A train weighs as much as over 100 hippos. And your car? It's a soda can in comparison. Now, when you exit your car and the track, don't just run anywhere. Run toward the direction the train is coming, but of course not on the track. Why? When the train hits your car, there will be a chaotic movement of debris, and running toward the train keeps you behind the scene and clear of the fallout. If your car gets stuck in the middle of nowhere, miles away from civilization, and you're stranded with no immediate help, burning a spare tire might just be your last-ditch SOS. Sure, it sounds extreme, but desperate times call for genius hacks. So place the tire at a safe distance, douse it with some fuel if you have any, and light it up. Why does this work? Well, tires can generate a thick, oily smoke that sends more signals than waving a flag or a puny little campfire could ever do. Also, thick black smoke is a universal signal for help. Planes, helicopters, or even distant hikers are much more likely to notice a bold, sky-high smoke and come to your rescue. Snake bites are terrifying, but what's worse is treating them the wrong way. When a snake bites, the venom spreads through your lymphatic system quickly. Trying to suck it out won't stop it from traveling, and you'll probably end up with venom in your mouth too. Now, that's only worsening the problem. What should you do? Stay calm, which I know is easier said than done. Immobilize the bitten area to slow the venom spread and get to the hospital ASAP. Remember, venom is nothing to play around with, and your first aid skills should never involve trying to be a human vacuum. Always plug your nose when you jump into a lake or a pond because you never know what's lurking in the water. Those calm, inviting bodies of water could be hiding something far more dangerous than a refreshing dip. One-celled creatures like Naegleria fowleri, the infamous brain-eating amoeba, thrive in warm fresh water, and they can easily find their way up your nose if you're not careful. Once they're in, it only takes a split second of carelessness for those tiny creatures to make their way into your body, potentially causing serious infections. So before you cannonball into the water, pinch your nose shut. It might seem like a small action, but it's your first line of defense against the unseen dangers swimming around. If you're lost in the desert, or anywhere else for that matter, the most important thing you can bring to maximize your chances of being found is a little reflective mirror. When a jet flies overhead, you can bounce light towards it, increasing your chances of being discovered. This is far more important than carrying extra water. Not that water doesn't matter, it's just unrealistic to carry that much water on your back. Furthermore, if you become lost in the desert with your vehicle, do not abandon it to look for help. You are far more difficult to spot than your vehicle, and it can give you shelter. It also has excellent reflective mirrors to signal with, notably the rear view mirror. Finally, another almost universal and versatile approach to signal for help exists. It's best described as the rule of 3 different things. It might be 3 gunshots, 3 whistle blows, 3 flashlight flashes, 3 reflected mirror flashes, etc. Ensure they're evenly spaced, at least 1 second apart, and take your time before sending your next 3 signals. Aspirin is used all over the world and is an essential over-the-counter medication that relieves pain, headaches, and fever. You've undoubtedly heard that aspirin can also be used to reduce the risk of heart attacks. Although a low daily dose of aspirin can help prevent heart attacks, it's not recommended for everyone. For many people, the risks of taking aspirin daily surpasses the benefits it offers. Be that as it may, it's widely acknowledged today that you should give a person having a heart attack an aspirin or 2 to chew for faster absorption. It's been proven that when taken during a heart attack, it could significantly reduce the amount of heart damage. According to data from the U.S. Life Saving Association, rip currents kill over 100 beachgoers annually. Many people falsely assume that such currents, often incorrectly called riptides, pull swimmers underwater. However, this is a misconception because rip currents aren't tides, but rather strong, narrow currents that travel away from the beach. When swimmers become entangled in a rip current, they may panic and dive under a wave, only to resurface further out at sea, still in the grip of the rip current. Instead, swimmers in this situation should remain calm and conserve their energy. There's no reason to be concerned that such a current will drag you underwater. Never swim against a rip current. Instead, swim parallel to the coast and away from the current until it subsides. Then, swim back to the beach. If you're lucky, the waves will carry you most of the way back to shore. Have you ever felt a strange metallic taste in your mouth while swimming? That tangy, coin-like sensation isn't from the water. It's your body warning you about an electrical short circuit nearby. Electrical currents can leak into water from damaged wiring, boats, or docks, turning what should be a relaxing swim into a potentially deadly situation. When your mouth picks up that metallic zing, it means there's electricity in the water, and it's time to get out fast. Like Olympic swimmer fast. Skitting on the road isn't just terrifying. It's a fast pass to a crash if you don't act smart. When your car decides it's auditioning for a skating show, the worst thing you can do is panic and yank the wheel in the opposite direction. While it might sound logical, that only makes things worse. Instead, steer into the skid. Yes, I know, it feels counterintuitive, but this simple move helps your tires realign with where your car's headed. Keep your eyes on where you want the car to go, not where it's sliding. Your hands tend to follow your eyes, so focusing on the clear path helps you course correct without overthinking. The trick is to work with the sand, not against it. Struggling like a fish out of water will only make you sink faster. Instead, lean back and spread your weight as much as possible, like you're floating in a pool. After that, begin moving toward the shore very slowly. Don't hurry, it will take a while. Once stable, slowly start moving towards solid ground using only your legs, but again, take your time, this process can take hours. Remember those moments you're scrolling through social media sharing your latest adventure or night out? I mean, it's exciting, right? But here's the thing, it could also be dangerous. When you broadcast your location in real time, you're basically saying, hey, my house is empty. And thieves, they're paying attention. These days, they're scouring social media looking for exactly that kind of tip-off. Now, does that mean you shouldn't share your experiences? No, of course not. Just make sure you turn off your location tagging. If you don't know how to swim and somehow end up falling into the water, don't panic. I realize that that's way easier said than done, but remember that you don't have to be able to swim to float. Allow yourself to bob to the surface while holding your breath. Take shallow breaths while keeping your lungs full of air until someone can get you out. If someone else is in trouble in the water and you decide to save them, know they can and will take you with them if you allow it. Their panic will overshadow all logical thoughts. Bring something with you, such as a float, a rope, or a towel, and use it to bridge the space between you and the person so you can tow them in. If you must make direct contact, approach the person from behind and place your arm across his or her chest. Pull the victims back to your chest while keeping his or her arms away from you. If a panic drowner grabs you, do everything you can to sink to the bottom. Most people will let go since that's the last place they want to be. We all have the deep desire to one day try out the Heimlich maneuver on someone. I'm kidding. I know the idea fills most of us with dread, which is why giving you the next bit of advice is vital. In the event of someone choking, but they are coughing or talking, do not intervene. Allow them to cough it out. The ability to cough indicates that air can get in and out of their airway and that they only have a partial obstruction. If you use the Heimlich or back blows to force it out, you risk dislodging the blockage, triggering a full obstruction. Obviously, if they aren't breathing or coughing, you should definitely step in. Just make sure to check in between the actions if the obstruction hasn't been moved or partially moved again, in which case the choker can cough it out. There's an obvious and not so obvious explanation for this, and once you understand the second, you'll never be tempted to ignore our advice. The first reason is that in an emergency, every second matters, and the first 90 seconds are critical. So you don't want throngs of people frantically attempting to inflate their life jackets before they can get out the door. Inflated life jackets also occupy more space, making it more difficult for people to move around in an emergency. The second reason is that if the plane begins to fill with water while you're wearing an inflated life jacket, you will not be able to swim to safety. The hijacked Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961 is a disturbing example. Many passengers who survived the accident drowned when their inflated life jackets kept them trapped in the rising water after the plane crash landed in said water. So, have you ever been in a life-threatening situation? What helped you survive? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this list, you will love 25 survival myths that could actually hurt you. Also, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and check out our social medias, including my personal ones. Links in the description. Thank you all so much for watching. I love you, and as always, I'll see you next time.